Welcome to the Onside Podcast, a podcast on innovation-driven entrepreneurship. Join us on this journey as we amplify the power of disruptive ideas.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're very excited to have you back again for the Onside Podcast, the podcast for innovation-driven entrepreneurship here in Canada. And we're very excited for our guest today. This season, we are taking a deeper dive into women's entrepreneurship across Canada, and we're really here today to highlight some of the most amazing women entrepreneurs and leaders who are working to make our startup ecosystem more inclusive and driving change. These fireside chats are being brought to you as part of the Start Now Incubator project, which is working to focus on diverse and intersectional women to help them grow and start their businesses across Canada. And this is being supported by the Women's Entrepreneurship Strategy. I'm your host, Alex MacCann. I'm based here in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Today, we will be speaking with Vanessa Marshall, the CEO and founder of Jack 59. Vanessa Marshall is a visionary entrepreneur and the inspiring founder of Jack 59, a company renowned for its eco-friendly hair care products. With a deep commitment to sustainability, inclusivity, and the celebration of Indigenous heritage, Vanessa has successfully carved out a niche in the beauty industry. Vanessa's innovative approach and dedication to excellence have earned her numerous accolades, recognizing her contributions to the beauty industry and her commitment to sustainability and female empowerment, which we love. Some notable highlights include the 2022 Alberta Women's Entrepreneur Award, winner for the Indigenous Entrepreneur of the Year, the Powwow Pitch Competition, the Made in Alberta Awards 2022, runner-up for the beauty category for Jack 59's shampoo and conditioner bars. Through her unwavering dedication, Vanessa not only has built a successful brand, but has also created a platform that celebrates Indigenous heritage and promotes sustainable living. Her journey serves as an inspiration to aspiring entrepreneurs and as a testament to the power of aligning business practices and personal values. Vanessa, I am so happy and excited to welcome you to the show.
It's wonderful to be here, Alex. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Well, I'm super excited, and we are going to have a lot of chance to learn a little bit about your business and what Jack 59 is. This podcast is being listened to from across Canada, and actually we've been checking some of our numbers, and folks are starting to listen to us internationally, so we'll see how that all goes. But for our listeners that are not from Alberta, can you share a little bit about your background and kind of ground us in where you're coming from and, a little bit about your family and your background and who you are?
Yeah, for sure. So I am from Northern Alberta. I grew up in a small town called Fost. My mother is Indigenous, so for most of our lives, we were actually Métis. There was, a lot of things that happened in the past in my mother's family. And at some point, the treaty rights that they had in their family were lost. So my mother has done this lifelong journey to get her rights back. And a few years ago, she gained her treaty rights back. So this year, actually, within this last month, I actually have also gained my treaty rights back. Amazing. So it's a really interesting journey to go through, some validation and some weird feelings to it. Regaining a culture that should have been yours the whole time is a very, it's a very strange feeling. It's a lot of mixed emotions there. So my mom, she's amazing. She's actually a huge inspiration to where we are today. She actually has been a recipient of an Esqueo Award in the past. And she has done a lot of work with Indigenous youth. So she's a huge inspiration in my life. So I kind of have that earthly side, back to the land. And then my father is European. Also, in the same area. He's very, he loves to garden and hunt and that same land-based, upbringing. So I was definitely raised with sustainability in my blood, composting. As a child, I really hated taking out the compost bucket. It was not great, but I mean, it instilled some really cool values. So that's where I'm from. We moved to Edmonton. We're now based in Edmonton. And our journey kind of started about 10 years ago, and we've we've come to where we are today with an incredible team.
It's awesome. Well, I love how you started off, and I can sense that, reclaiming your heritage in this kind of way of recognition, obviously in the last couple of months, and I can only imagine the journey over, years and things like that, must be so meaningful to you and to your family, and to have that kind of recognition, even if you know it in your heart and, through your family and friends, it must be feeling so satisfying after all of this time.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of generational trauma that goes along with that, generational addiction. My mother really was the first person in our family to stop that cycle. And my mother has been sober for 30 years. So that was something that she really felt was important for all of our grandbabies. So none of the grandchildren in our family have ever experienced that with her, which is absolutely amazing. I mean, not a lot of people, fight their way out of addiction. So I really hold her high, and it also, obviously, well, not obviously, but it kind of trickled down to my life. There was a huge portion of my life that I was stuck in addiction. So I'm almost 10 years, it'll be 10 years this coming up year. So that's huge in my life.
That's wonderful.
So really that's a part of the story, but I don't want that to be the story. I'm very fortunate. I had a huge support team that really carries me to this day. We stay vigilant, and my mother's like a sponsor, and we get to kind of share that celebration together, and also, to really be aware that that is something that is always present. So, it just takes a lot of work and dedication. And I mean, you get to celebrate with the people that mean the most in your life. So that's also amazing.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that and letting us know a little bit, giving us a little inkling. And I definitely, appreciate that's part of the story, but it's obviously not the whole story. And, we're every day we're adding and building on to our lives. And, my son graduated from high school yesterday. I just said to him, it's been a crazy week. I'm ready for the weekend. And it's life is full of twists and turns and journeys, and I said peaks and valleys and failures. These are or difficult moments. So life is full of all these things, but it is not all of one thing. It is made up of many different things. So.
Very true. Very true.
So you're from Northern Alberta. You have this heritage that you've reclaimed, your Indigenous heritage. And you mentioned a little bit about struggling with addictions and, things like that and trauma along the way. But, I think most people know you for now, of the success and I don't want to say overnight success, because I know it's been a long journey. When people find you, they're like, oh yeah, this has been around forever. This is an overnight success. But what was some of the motivation for you to create Jack 59? And I definitely want us to hear the story about the name Jack 59, because it's but what kind of motivated you to want to create this company to begin with?
Yeah, I mean, both of my siblings, my father, are entrepreneurs, so that entrepreneurial spirit is definitely, a part of who I am. But I really, my children are 18 years apart. So I had my son when I was 19, and I had my daughter when I was 32, I think. Wow, that's a long time ago. So there's been this sort of interesting progression throughout my life of, my son spent most of his childhood in daycare or after school care, because I was working a 9-to-5 job. And so when I was going through this journey with my daughter, I had recently, got through my addiction, and I was back working, and it was sort of like these cycles were just, doing the same thing. And I really didn't want her to spend her whole childhood in daycare. I'd actually gone to university to do dentistry. So I had gone to the University of Alberta and completed pre-med and was going to enter into dentistry. And I went to go visit an old dentist that I had worked for in British Columbia. And I walked into his office and not one thing had changed. Literally, it was like walking into the Twilight Zone. And I realized that I couldn't live in that environment. It was so constricting. So I actually withdrew and went back to work for a while. And I was kind of searching. I was really searching. I knew I wanted to do a business of my own so that I could be home more, or at least involve my children in it. And my sister actually had started making some soaps and stuff and candles and whatnot. And she had been really dabbling and the process seemed very, science driven. And there was lots of, you're dealing with some caustic ingredients. It was a little bit of adrenaline happening there. It was, exciting and it really seemed interesting. So I started dabbling in soap making and a few other products, lotions and bath bombs, but it really never felt like the thing that was really going to launch us into a niche that was going to be super successful. So I actually tried a shampoo bar. I mean, we didn't invent them, obviously. There's others on the market, but so we went on a vacation and I used this bar and it was terrible. My scalp was itchy. I really had to go buy some liquid shampoo. So throughout this process, I was like, why? What's happening with this product? I mean, I thought it was a very successful product. So I, got on the phone and I was doing a little bit of research on the beach. And I really had one of those aha moments when I realized what was wrong with the product. I knew that it was an easy fix. Don't tell anybody else that. But so when we got back home, I literally dove in, started formulating and learning, and I'm really self-taught. I don't have a formulating background, but I mean, nowadays anybody can do, if you want to become an expert in something, all of the resources are out there for you to do that. So it took a couple of years of really hardcore reading and studying and following other leaders that have come before me in this field, and really dove in and created a line that was salon quality. I think one of the biggest things with sustainable products nowadays is that they say about 75% of consumers are looking for a sustainable option to something that they already have in their life. But often what happens is they purchase a sustainable option and it doesn't work as well. And they really get, discouraged and go back to their other product. So I wanted to kind of stop that from happening and really offer somebody a product that once they tried it, they'd be hooked. The results were fabulous, so that process was a lot easier. So it started to kind of take off a little bit, and then we were looking for a name, and we wanted something really unique for our name. There was a lot of bubble soap this, and we just wanted something that really stood out. And it had been a couple of weeks, and I was talking with my husband one day, and my daughter, who was small at the time, she came up with this name. So how the story started was we lived in Northern Alberta, and this little dog came out of the forest. And he was starving and full of hitchhikers and really needed some help. I was not in the position to want to keep this dog at the time. So I told her, we'll take this dog in, we'll fix it up, but we're going to take it to somebody else who can care for it. And of course, within a couple of days, we fell in love with this dog. And so I told my daughter, well, if you're going to keep this dog, you have to pick a name. And being a 4-year-old, she just blurted out, Jack 59. So we named the dog Jack 59. But the next day, the dog moved on to other adventures. Oh. And she was heartbroken. Yeah, she literally cried for weeks. So then years later, when we were getting into making a name for ourselves, we were having this conversation with my husband, and she came and sat on my knee and said, can you just call it Jack 59 so we can remember him forever? Oh. Yeah. And I mean, at first I was like, what are we going to do with this? And, I went to bed and kind of slept on it. And I was really thinking, the reason we're doing this is for family. The idea is to grow something from all of us. And what a better way to name it than to have the next generation name it and it be after something that was, a little moment in our lives that was very emotional. And yeah, so it really stuck around, and I started kind of researching, and it turns out that it was actually a really interesting name advertising wise as far as names go. So it stuck, and it feels like a salon brand name, which is where we really want to be. So yeah, kind of stuck.
Okay. I love that. But there's no, the little Jack 59 is just, he ran back to wherever he came from.
We come from it's a rural area. There's a lot of stray dogs in the area, but also they're pretty much taken care of by somebody. And I think the dog probably just got lost. Yeah. So they hopefully found their home.
Yeah.
We can only hope. Yeah. Somebody's taking care of Jack 59. We can just gonna believe that.
Yeah. So you got to keep the name. You didn't get to keep the dog, but you kept the name and
Yeah, he gave us a gift and moved on.
and definitely from the branding that I see, it looks like it really pops out, and it's like a great kind of, you're like, oh, what is that about? It has a interesting kind of quality about it. So I love the name. I'm glad you stuck with the name. I love it.
Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah. I love origin stories, and I love hearing about how you were playing around and trying different things and reading and researching and trying to figure out like how you could make something better. Because I definitely have tried shampoo bars in the past, and they have not always been the best. But I did get yours. I don't know if anyone can see it online, but I have it here. I got the I have the blonde bombshell, which smells amazing. I don't have blonde hair, but I do have gray hair. So it's supposed to help with my grays. So that's what I'm.
Yes, keep it nice and bright and shiny.
Nice, bright and shiny. And the lady at the counter helped me, and she said it was the best smelling one. And I have to attest, at least in my opinion, it is definitely the best smelling one. So for me, so I love it. But as you were starting the company, other than getting the name and you're testing things out and trying different things, like what was the hardest thing about starting the company or going down this path? Like what was the most difficult thing that was kind of an obstacle for you?
I mean, to nail down one difficult thing is challenging. There was many difficult things. I mean, I don't have a business background. I don't have any education per se, any, institutional education, we'll say. But I mean, I sort of feel like I want to speak to Indigenous businesses, in a generalized kind of manner, because there's a lot of things that happen with Indigenous businesses. A lot of Indigenous people are coming off of the reserve. So when you are trying to start a business and approaching institutions and banks, you don't have the typical assets that other people may have. And I mean, everybody's situation is different, but so usually, you don't have a lot of collateral or assets to start your business. I didn't myself. So that was really hard to get money to get funded. So we approached a number of banks, and none of them were willing to support us. So luckily for us, in Alberta, there's an institution called Apitagosan, and they fund Métis entrepreneurs that have a real, you have to have a business plan. And even that, creating a business plan is not easy. So there was a lot of research and a lot of work, I had to learn how to do each and every little step of this along the way. And that was really challenging. When we did get a little bit of money, of course, that really helped us. So I'm very fortunate to that, but not everybody has access to that. There's also the internal struggle of wanting to represent your culture, but also not really knowing your culture. I mean, it's almost easier for somebody outside of the culture because you don't have that fear of getting it wrong. When you're trying to represent your culture and you get something wrong, it's really, people really sort of are on you, and they're, like, you're not representing this correctly, which kind of instills, a little bit of fear. And you have this, I hate to talk about imposter syndrome, but it was a reality when I started. And then you're questioning, and then you need to get all this courage and really just sort of do something. And if it's wrong, just hope that people will teach you that and learn how to do it correctly. So I think that when I say courage, it sounds, so like, oh yes, you need some courage, but it was very directed, and it was very, it's very hard to, some people will say you have to fail before you succeed. I have a really hard time with that, because I feel like in my life with the addiction and with a lot of the other things that have happened, that I have failed at so many things. So when you're on this huge path to do something that you think is going to be incredible, and you're still failing at some of it, it's really discouraging. So I think one of the hardest things was really to trust myself and really be able to learn that, that's just one little step along a huge journey. So just not quitting, just really keeping going. I think that was the hardest thing, to not be discouraged. When you have an entrepreneurial dream, I almost guarantee that 90% of the people around you are trying to convince you that it is unattainable. And so when you know in your heart that it's something that you can do and you can attain, it's really hard to keep going through all of that negativity and people that don't have faith in you. Not necessarily in you, but maybe in your concept, So I think that was the biggest struggle, was really just to keep going and keep persevering. Yeah.
Yeah. So many things. I've heard different things from different entrepreneurs, but going against the grain and keeping it going, even when things are difficult or it's looking, bleak, is definitely a challenge. And the access to the financing is a real thing for women entrepreneurs, kind of writ large.
Absolutely.
If you're an Indigenous woman entrepreneur, it's even harder.
Yeah.
And so the cards are kind of stacked against you. And when you don't see other people doing it, it's probably a pretty lonely kind of journey. So have there been people that have kind of helped you along your journey? You were mentioning an organization there that kind of helped you in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, if I had to give somebody advice, like an entrepreneur coming in, an Indigenous woman coming in, I think that's the biggest piece of advice that I would offer them is, your family really wants to support you and they're doing their best, but they don't see that vision. They don't see it the same way as an entrepreneurial mind does. So one of the things that I did early on was reach out to other Indigenous entrepreneurs, shoot them a message. You'd be surprised, sometimes online, these organizations can appear to be this entity that is unreachable, when in reality, they're just people like you and I who have done the same thing and are quite willing, especially Indigenous women, are very willing to help other Indigenous women, women in general. I think women in general do business different than, our counterpart. We work as a network. And so we joined a network called Corliss. Corliss is an absolutely amazing network of women who you can either be a venture, which would be an entrepreneur with a business idea coming in, or you can actually be an activator. So there's thousands of activators across the world who are women like you and I who donate $97 a month. And you become part of a network where people can offer information, anything, webinars, and you can also ask for things. So it's a very reciprocal relationship, and it's an incredible network. So there's mini groups that get together, people with similar backgrounds. Like, so there's an Indigenous group. There's, all different varieties of women that you can get together. They have activities and events. And you really get to sit down with a group of women who get you. They understand your struggles, and depending on what level they are in their business, they definitely have probably experienced these struggles. So learning from them and sharing with them, you can prevent a lot of mistakes and learn, new ways to go about it, and just new ways to look at things, different perspectives that you never thought of to begin with. I've been inspired to even launch products from what people have been telling us. Yeah, so Corliss, I think, was the most instrumental in our beginning for sure. And we actually won to be a venture in 2022. So we were also offered an interest-free loan for $100,000. So that was paramount in what we were able to do through COVID. Yeah, it was absolutely instrumental.
That's amazing. Well, I'm glad you mentioned Corliss because for this season, Vicky Saunders was one of our first podcast guests. So,
Beautiful lady.
and I love her radical generosity. And a few years ago, I think I might have been an activator. I was in an activator pod for a minute, but now you're saying I'm like, okay, I need to get back to it. So I'm gonna I'm gonna come back around to that because I love that idea that they have around radical generosity and the model they have around supporting women financially, but also, as you kind of mentioned, building that community to really help their ventures or companies or, kind of get to that next level and make those connections because it's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Vicky is a visionary. She has created a movement, an absolute movement that I am so proud to be a part of. I mean, we even got mentorship for a whole year. Like, we were basically asked, what do we need? And everything from your thinking patterns, how you work together as a team. Like, you don't really think of those things when you're just like madly, frantically framing a business and you're going through all of this stuff at an incredible rate. And to have somebody let you sit back and say, how is this aspect going? And how is your team working together? Because one of the biggest things through Corliss that, we really instill with other businesses is, our team, and I think that's also something that we really position Jack 59 to set us apart, is we offer our staff living wages, flexible work hours. We want them to have job security, and we want to know what we can do to make their lives better. This last year, we were able to now offer health benefits. So I think that whole, looking at life as a group and taking care of each other, that is so huge for us. And that extends to our community. We focus on the Indigenous community, but, we don't single it out. We work with organizations, like we work with one called Mustard Seed. They help homeless people. They have care packages, health checks. There's all kinds of things. So, unfortunately, the hugest population that use these services are Indigenous. But yeah, it just really is important to us that we do better for the world. We do business differently. Consumers have a huge voice, but the companies themselves have a bigger responsibility to minimize the plastic packaging, do everything in their power that they can to change the things. We never really talked about being a B-Corp, but I think we'll talk about being a B-Corp a little bit because that's also really important to me.
Yeah. Well, since you brought it up, why don't we we can go there because I know this is something that you've been working towards, and I don't know how many people know what a B Corp is and what it means, but I definitely, at least in following your brand and what you've been doing with your company, it seems like it's a value aligned way of kind of conducting your business. But why don't you tell us a little bit about how you actually went down that journey to do the B Corp and what led you to that?
Yeah, absolutely. That was a journey in itself. Okay, so a B Corp, there are now, I believe, about 8,700 companies worldwide who are registered, certified as a B Corp. So a B Corp is a company that goes through a very rigorous process of measuring your accountability to people and the planet. So it goes through a number of different categories. It is extremely rigorous. Every single thing in your company is measured. And the goal is to work on the world's sustainable development goals. So you're ranked at the end of it. We scored, I believe, 92.5, which is a fair score. But at the end of it, at the end of your first term, it gets a little even more rigorous because you've given them some goals that you say that you're going to work on to keep improving. So the idea is that you're making a difference when things like the government and the laws are not enough to make change towards climate change. Just how employees are treated, how you deal with the community. your greenhouse gas emissions, your waste, everything is monitored and measured. So it took me a full year of intense, work to get this certification. And once we were done, it doesn't end there. It's continual. So if you as a consumer see a company that is a B Corp, please know that says it all. That's pretty much all you need to know as to where a company is positioning itself. I'm super honored to be a B Corp. And there's lots of other, even Indigenous companies that are B Corp. Cheekbone Beauty, run by Jen Harper, that's also a B Corp. Sacha Organics, which is run by Patrice Mousseau, and there's numbers of others, absolutely. So it's a huge honor, and I'm proud to be a B Corp.
That's awesome. Well, I would say congratulations. And I know I've heard from others that it's a very rigorous standard that you're working towards. I didn't realize you had to keep going and improving, but that makes sense. And I know you'll keep at that because you're really concerned about sustainability and reducing waste. And, I know from your background, these things are really important. And you talk about climate change and being from Alberta and wildfires and, all these kinds of things. We see the need to really make an impact. So I congratulate you on putting the work into becoming a B Corp. Well, another thing that I also know, or we talked a little bit about, not exactly related to B Corp, but you've also taken, and you mentioned a little bit earlier, talking about product innovation and how you think about the things that are important to you when coming up with new products or things like that. Is there a source of innovation or wisdom or traditional knowledge that you use when you're thinking about kind of the new products that you're coming up with, or how does that process work? And I guess how it ties to your interest in sustainability as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the very paramount goal at Jack 59 is to be plastic free. That was sort of our original goal. There's so much plastic waste in the beauty world. It is incredible. I mean, even if you look at, some companies will offer a glass jar, but it has a metal ring on it that you can't actually separate. That actually gets thrown in the garbage because it's not recyclable as the way it is. I mean, obviously our system needs to change. In Edmonton, our facility is non-functional. So I'm not even sure what we're doing to actually recycle here. There's so much systemic stuff around it, but really that was our goal. So if we align all of the products that we create to be plastic free, that's our first and foremost goal. Along with that, we want to instill other initiatives with that. So we launched a year and a half ago, I believe now, our Dreams line. So our Dreams line is Orange for Every Child Matters. So the artwork on it was done by an artist named Tristan Jenny, who is absolutely an amazing person. I actually have a tattoo from her in the same design. So the goal with that line is to donate the full proceeds back to Indigenous organizations. So we get to advocate at the same time for other Indigenous communities while offering the plastic-free options. So we are in the near future launching a line of body wash bars. So we're just working on those right now. They smell delicious, and they will have an Indigenous scent. I don't know. I don't want to say too much. So there'll be some really cool aspects with this line as well, and some financial donations happening with those as well. So really, I think it's a challenging business to instill like old ways. A lot of people will, they'll say, oh, we're putting traditional herbs in our products. And it really wasn't something that I wanted to do because we yet don't have sustainable ways to source those ingredients. We have a few ingredients that are like mint, calendula. Those are very easy for us to produce ourselves at this moment for the rate that the quantity that we require. So we absolutely try to do a lot of that. But people wanted us to create a sweetgrass line, and that would be great, but there are no real sustainable options for us at the moment. So really, we're sticking with what we know. And then we get to advocate, which means more to me than saying like, here's a sage product or here's a sweetgrass product. I mean, I love that stuff, absolutely, but that's just sort of not our focus of where we're going. Mm-hmm. And, a big part of it is me learning our culture as we go. Part of that generational trauma was, I'm not sure everybody is aware. So what happened long ago in the Indigenous culture was the Catholic Church put missionaries in a lot of the towns. So the priests and the nuns were really there and changed or altered the culture. So my kukum, who is my grandmother, was so ingrained with the Catholic Church that she was led to believe that the ways of the Cree culture were savage and they were not the way to raise your children. So my kukum actually chose to raise her children within the Catholic Church. So my mother never really passed on a lot of the Cree culture. So we definitely got a lot of the church, which, I don't have a belief either way. I'm very spiritual in that I believe everybody should have their own beliefs, and I welcome that. But, there is an aspect of that I feel a bit of loss. So I'm gaining that and learning that as we go, and it's a great experience. I get to learn and teach people as I go, and it's also very fun. So I think that plastic free.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things, we've to date eliminated over 700,000 plastic bottles from entering the environment.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing.
It's incredible when you think about that.
That's amazing. Well, I'm here in Halifax, and we're definitely a water culture, and we're right on the ocean. So we definitely appreciate anything that is done to prevent plastics ending up in the oceans and the waterways. It's such a huge problem. So any company that's doing that you're making a difference. You're definitely making a difference. You talked a little bit about your family again and your Indigenous culture. One of the things I'm curious about is, what is one of the greatest joys and one of the greatest challenges in being an Indigenous woman business owner? So what's the thing that gives you like the most joy? Or maybe do you want to start with the challenge and then go for the joy, whichever way. I don't know. Do people like to hear the good news or the bad news first? But what are the joys and challenges of being an Indigenous businesswoman?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest joys is the networking. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's such incredible women entrepreneurs out there, and really immersing myself in that network. The camaraderie and the sisterhood is so amazing. I mean, there's aspects of my life that I share with my family, and it's absolutely amazing, but there's just so much that they don't understand. And that to be able to talk with somebody who understands that, it's absolutely incredible. And just to see the spirit grow and the power come back into people is so incredible to watch them on their journeys and share that with them. That's absolutely incredible. And it's interesting because I never, ever expected that would be something that I cherished. Growing up I had a very challenging relationship with women. People found me, I don't know, very threatening, maybe is the word. So I never had a great relationship with a lot of women growing up. And I was always sort of scared to initiate those relationships. And as I grew older and wiser, I guess, realizing that they were probably all feeling the exact same thing, and to just break through those barriers and really come together. It's incredible. I mean, not that everybody are mothers, but I just feel like that maternal instinct and caring for each other is absolutely incredible. And the humor in it, is such a a relief and joy to share with them. I think that is absolutely incredible. Yeah. And just knowing you're being a part of something really good in the world is really cool. I enjoy that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
If you were going to give a piece of advice, this will be, I'll close out here, but if you were going to give a piece of advice, to an Indigenous woman who wanted to start a business, or a diverse woman or a rural woman, because there's so many people from so many different places who never think of themselves as being an entrepreneur or business owner or a founder. What would be one kind of piece of advice for someone who's kind of starting out at the very beginning? Because, our project that we run is called the Start Now Incubator, and it's really just this idea of just starting. If you don't start, you got to start somewhere. So do you have any advice for just how do you start? What would be your early advice?
Yeah. I mean, really just dive in. A ton of reading, I'll never stop learning, always continually learning. But I think one of the things that I didn't do soon enough was get a mentor. And when I mean mentor, I don't mean like you have to find somebody, pay somebody. That's not it. Just connect with an entrepreneur, another entrepreneur. I mentioned it before that some of these women feel like they're, unapproachable. Just shoot them a message. I love to work with entrepreneurs. If anybody's listening to this and wants to reach out, I have my information all over the place. You can find me, anywhere. I'd be more than willing to chat. I love, launching the beginning stages and really giving the confidence and the know-how. I think that's the biggest part is just reach out, network, talk to people, keep learning, and just do it. You got to just do it. You got to do it, especially for diverse, Indigenous people. Shopify, if you need a website, Shopify will give you 6 months free. There's a connection through Powwow Pitch. There's so many resources out there. Business Development Canada has a website with all types of different information on there for starting out, how to start out, how to get a license. If you need a license, there's just all of those logistics that are really quite attainable if you know where to find the information. Entrepreneurial websites all over the place.
I love it. Well, those are definitely some good tips. And I always say, stay curious. If folks want to learn more about you or connect with you, what's your website? Where can people go to find out more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is jack59.ca. I highly recommend taking our hair quiz. It's a simple tool that will allow you to choose some products, give you kind of a little head start. My email is vanessa@jack59.ca. You can reach out, email me. I think that's the best two ways to find us.
Okay. Well, I want to say thank you for being our guest today on the Onside podcast, Start Now Incubator edition for this fireside chat. For anyone who wants to learn more about Onside, you can come to our website, onsidenow.ca. If you're interested in entrepreneurial journey, come to our website, startnowincubator.ca. We'd love to see you there, and stay tuned for more exciting podcasts with amazing guests. And we'll be so looking forward to connecting with you in the future. And I hope that maybe one day I'll get to see you in person as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, Alex. I appreciate it.